Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Shorthanded Lakers lose in Brooklyn. How did JJ Redick react? Very interesting reaction. We'll tell you about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, no matter where you get your podcasts. This one's always free, never going to be behind a paywall, and Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 33,000 subscribers, Andy, are all wondering what the next couple weeks are going to look like with the very shorthanded Lakers. No LeBron James, obviously, no Rui Hachimura, no Dorian Finney-Smith. No Jaxson Hayes, so four very important members of the rotation missing, and that means a 111-108 loss to the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn. Not a good night by any stretch of the imagination, whether for the two remaining stars for the team in Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves, or the rest of the guys either. It was an ugly game.
It was an ugly game. I do think if you are looking, and I'm not even trying to spin this glass half full, I actually mean it. I think there were some positives in the way Gabe Vincent played,
Sure.
Jordan Goodwin played. I thought Dalton Connect played well, like Jared Vanderbilt, 7.6 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. Like, if you are looking for something positive from this game, the supporting guys who likely will have some role in the playoffs. Actually, I thought execution was lacking across the board, like as a team. And that's something we're going to get into that JJ Redick was absolutely livid about after this game. But if you're looking at individual performances and did you step up on a night where you needed to contribute because four main guys are out, I think Goodwin, Vincent, Connect, and Vando all did enough. And in the case of Goodwin and Vincent, I think more than enough, where you look at them and say they were positives. But as a team, they did not play well together. And Luka and Reaves struggled badly.
That's really where I was getting at. It's, we'll get to the team aspects of it. It's not that nobody played well. It's that the team, and this ties directly into JJ's reaction. I mean, first and foremost, the Lakers lose this game because Austin Reaves, in particular, and then Luka, especially from a shot making standpoint, the two of those guys combined to shoot 11 of 40. As Jim Anderson notes in the chat, like they didn't need big nights from AR and Luka. They just needed not bad ones. And those guys, Luka finished with a triple double, but not all triple doubles are created equal. And this one was so wildly inefficient at 8 for 26 from the floor. This is too many empty shots. And those two guys, as your best players, need to be the best players on the floor, and they were not, well, at least not consistently enough. So I'm not trying to pin this on, not getting enough from Trey Jemison or something like that. The stars needed to play better, and they didn't. I think Luka, side note, is banged up, and
I mean,
respect that he played, but
for Monday's show, I was saying that I would have been okay if they had sat Luka for this game. If they had any concerns at all about his back and the soreness that he's been dealing with becoming more of an issue, just because as much as this is one of those games against Brooklyn, had been on a 7-game losing streak, this is one of the games that you write in pen as a win when you're pacing out the wins and losses, trying to maintain that second seed or stay as high as you want. This is one of those wins, one of those games that'd be really disappointing to end up in the loss column, as we are learning now. But even more disappointing would have been Luka out for a week to 2 weeks, along with LeBron and Rui, because his back got worse. I don't know that his back got worse during this game, but he looked like a guy dealing with some type of physical ailment. And frankly,
it played over 41 minutes in the game.
And frankly, I am concerned that Austin is not all the way back physically from that calf injury that cost him a couple of games. I'll say this much. He is way the hell out of rhythm if he's feeling fine.
No, he's played horribly and said as much after the game. I mean, I just finished the Luka thing. I thought, he kind of looked like he tweaked his ankle. I think that was in the first half, and I was just laboring, I think is a fair way to put it. The flip side is the Lakers, especially if Reaves isn't providing him any support, and he wasn't.
Yeah, it was weird. The two of them filled up the stat lines pretty well, except their shooting was so off.
Right.
It created so many empty possessions. Like Austin Reaves finished the night with 17 points. 10 of them were at the line. I mean, he was 3 of 14 from the field, 1 of 5 from behind the arc. Like you said, Luka 8 of 26, 3 of 10 from behind the arc. It's not that the two of them didn't find ways to contribute. Luka had a triple-double. Austin came within screaming distance of it. The problem is there was a lot of messiness that sometimes the counting stats actually matter.
Well, like I said, I mean, not all triple doubles are created equal. I don't think Luka would tell you he played a particularly good game. But I will say this, part of the reason I think Luka looked like he was laboring so much was because while I agree with you, Goodwin, had particularly early, what did he hit his first 4 threes? Came out really hot shooting. Vincent came out really hot shooting. They don't have a lot of shot creation other than those guys to provide kind of an outlet. It's like Luka's got to set you up to make shots. And if Reaves isn't providing that sort of supplementary shot making and shot creation, it puts a lot on Luka, particularly when the Lakers are playing by necessity, because those are the players they have available. They're playing really a very small lineup. And so you need to be able to find ways to generate more offense without Luka having to do it all. And the Lakers failed in that regard. They also turned the ball over too much. They did not turn Brooklyn over on the other side of the ball. And, you put those things together, too many empty possessions, too many turnovers. They gave up 16 offensive rebounds, which again is a function of playing very small. That's tough. I mean, the fact that they were even in this game with 11 of 40 from those guys and all the stuff I just mentioned is kind of a testament to how bad Brooklyn is.
Yeah, I mean, for all the criticism JJ had, it is definitely a testament to how bad Brooklyn is. And I guess if you're looking for any type of silver linings, because we know how a lot of Laker fans feel about D'Angelo Russell, he didn't have his revenge game. Oh. Although, I don't remember the first time he played the Lakers as a member of the Nets. Maybe he had it before. There could always be a third revenge game after he eventually joins the Lakers again and then gets traded to the Nets again. So, there's time for all this. But D'Lo was 2 of 9 from the field, 2 of 6 from behind the arc, 7 assists, 8 points. I mean, he didn't light the world on fire. If you're looking,
he did hit a late 3 that was pretty important.
So it was, but I mean, this was
a lot of earlier ones that were also important.
Right. This was not a big game for D'Lo. And said before, the supporting guys, I think if you are, again, looking for something from a disappointing night, particularly from your stars, that you can feel good about, it's that those guys stepped up, I think, for the most part when they were needed. I think there were a variety of reasons that Luka and Austin didn't manage to, some of which are more potentially unsettling than others. But either way, it was a night where, especially considering the competition, you had hope that even if it wasn't going to be easy, those two could find a way to make it happen against that Nets team. I mean, you could make an argument that Luka and Austin, at least on paper, are the two best players on the court. Luka's without question the best. It's really a matter of, do you think there's anyone on Brooklyn that is definitively better than Austin? even if you do, there couldn't be that many.
No. And the answer to that is unless you think Cam Johnson is. And so, yeah, Cam Thomas, maybe you could say, but he didn't play. So you look at, I think of the two, I am currently more worried about Austin. 3 games since returning from the calf injury, 2 of 13 against the Knicks, 5 of 12 against Boston, 3 of 14 against Brooklyn. So he is clearly not right. Needs those couple of days before the Lakers get to the back-to-back. Lakers are going to need him to play better. I mentioned in the open, JJ's reaction to this game, I thought was both interesting and very important in a bunch of different ways. Get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Skims. I am really picky about underwear. I only like boxer briefs. They have to have a certain feel, certain tightness, but not too tight, certain looseness, but not too loose. It's like Goldilocks. They got to be just right. So when I heard that we at Locked On could try out some Skims underwear, my first thought was Skims makes men's underwear, and they do. They make a lot of different styles. And my second thought was, well, I'm picky. Am I going to like them? And the answer is, hell yeah, I'm going to like them. I tried both the 3-inch and 5-inch boxer briefs, and they are both super comfortable. They're soft. They don't bunch up. They feel really great. They look really good too. So highly, highly recommend. Shop Skims Men at skims.com. Again, shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we send you. And after you place your order, this is the most important part. Select podcast in the survey. Select our show in the drop-down menu that follows Locked On Lakers. Extremely important part of this whole process. I'd argue the most important. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com.
So there are times, Andy, when coaches in a situation like this, you got a team that's got a bunch of games coming up, difficult schedule, you just lost your star player for a couple of weeks, one of your stars at least, and so on and so on and so on and so on, would give his team the old attaboy, let him know that's a heck of a ball club on the other side. And it's just a heck of a ball club.
Just time to fill up your cups.
We're going to fill up our cups and we're going to get back into it. Mm-hmm. And, kind of brush this off. Because, yes, I understand it's the Brooklyn Nets. They sort of sucked and, suck. And the Lakers still had the best player on the floor. They are the team that came in with the better, the second seed in the West and all that kind of stuff. Look at the players the Lakers put on the floor. It was not a super high-end rotation, but Redick didn't do that. Instead, he kind of lit into them as ferociously and as critically as he has really all year. Maybe there's some other games that are close, but he was extraordinarily critical of their execution, of their attention to detail. He basically said they tried to just do shortcuts all night and weren't invested in doing things the right way. And what I think is beyond arguing about whether or not he's correct, and not going to argue with the guy, I just think it to me, it says how much expectations and the standard and the end goals have changed for this team. Because if you're not really expected to go anywhere, then you blow off a game like this. But now it's like, we don't care who is playing or not playing. We have moved the bar. You guys won 20 of 24. That moved the bar. And now everybody's got to play to this level. And we didn't do it. And I don't care who is on the floor and who isn't. The level of execution is supposed to reach a certain standard. And so I thought that was a really interesting aspect of how Redick reacted post-game.
I think you're totally right about the way the bar is raised. And we're also in a place right now where we're getting down to the wire. And if your seed matters to you, and for every team in the playoffs, playoff race, including the Lakers, we talked about before, they're not going to risk LeBron coming back too early in order to try to maintain a 2 seed, but they would prefer to remain as high up as they can. JJ, so I agree with you. The standards have raised, all that stuff, but we've also seen this season, JJ, if they play poorly, like in terms of the results, but they generally play hard, and in JJ's mind, they executed. He tends to not,
or at least tried to execute.
Right. Well, in his mind, he feels like they were executing at least at a, you must be this tall to ride the ride level of execution. Like they're meeting the bare minimum of what he would consider execution, or a little bit higher. And they're playing hard. They're playing with a certain amount of physicality and toughness that JJ has preached since training camp. He generally has, I think, a pretty positive outlook on losses, even if we know the way JJ's wired, they kill him. What JJ has zero patience for, and I think this game was a reminder, is when in his mind, they don't play smart. And a lot of times to him, lack of execution equals you played stupid. Like he talked about how they were setting screens so high that they were essentially trapping themselves, like in a lot of like doing some of the work for Brooklyn for them, and basically putting Austin and especially Luka in these places where it's like, what are they supposed to do? They're too far to any of their outlets to actually pass their way out of this double. And he said that this was a game of very low communication. Mm-hmm. And for what it's worth, Luka agreed afterward and said he needed to do a better job. It's also an area where you are reminded of LeBron's absence, because nobody on this team communicates better, more clearly, more confidently than LeBron. I mean, Luka, Reaves, these other guys, they're smart players. You know, DFS is known to be super talkative on the floor. Hell, even Trey Jemison talks a lot on the floor. But nobody on this team is a better communicator than LeBron. He was missed, I think, in that specific way tonight.
I think it's a great point. And I think that's another reason why Redick lit into them the way that he did. Because the reality is, this is your lineup, you know, for a bit. You know, hopefully Jaxson Hayes is back on Thursday, you know, for the back-to-back, and we can get into the, you know, who played and who didn't, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, bottom line is you need Jaxson Hayes back in the lineup because he is clearly their best center. You know, hopefully Dorian Finney-Smith is back relatively soon, if not Thursday, Friday, whatever it might be. But Rui's going to be, you're without Rui for another week to 10 days, likely. You're certainly without LeBron for another couple of weeks. If you diagnose a problem and say, like, you know, communication, talk, things like that, there is no sport in which talking is not critical. And when you stop communicating, things break down. Now, I expect, it's not surprising to me on a night where a lot of guys are getting a lot of minutes who are not used to playing with each other, who are not necessarily big rotation guys and all that stuff, that, you know, communication breaks down. Dalton connects, probably thinking about a lot of other stuff, you know, making sure, not necessarily talking is not necessarily one of them. You know, Goodwin is relatively new to the roster. I can see why a lot of this stuff breaks down, but Redick is reminding him, like, your top communicator, Andy, to your point, is not going to be here for a couple weeks. Collectively, we need to pick up the slack here. Like, we can't drop the ball on stuff like that when LeBron isn't here. And so again, the standard is raised. Like, we are now playing for stuff that is really important. We need to win as many games as we can while a couple of our best players are out of the rotation. So detail work like this, I don't care how bad of a player you are, you can still talk. That stuff we can control, that stuff we can fix, and not doing that stuff correctly is not acceptable. Missed shots happens. Don't talk, unacceptable.
Yeah, they're in a place now where, you know, those details truly matter. Mm-hmm. You know, it's super important. Like, it's one thing to attempt shortcuts with LeBron and Luka on the floor. Like, I'm not saying it's acceptable. I'm just saying you can get away with it more when the people leading the way in these shortcuts are LeBron and Luka, even if JJ's on the sideline going like, guys, seriously, don't, like, whatever. You can't get away with it when you don't have LeBron plus Rui, who is in some ways the best finisher of plays on this team among non-stars when it comes to the ability to finish inside, the ability to finish plays outside, like all of that, without all the defense that DFS provides, without Jaxson Hayes, the easy points, like all that stuff. They have to follow the steps now even more to a letter, because they're not going to be able to out-talent team. We're in a hopefully small sample size version of what we talked about earlier in the season, in that they didn't have the talent to paper over their shortcomings. At full strength, they are certainly more talented than they were before, but they are now at a place where they can't paper over anything. They have to follow the game plan.
But I think, and this is something that I had talked about a lot, like one of the things that has impressed me is how, despite all of the, guys coming in out of the lineup, and AD was missing, pre-trade, and they were still playing defense, and Goodwin pops into the lineup. Now look, there's a difference between one guy missing and you have one of these back end of the rotation guys coming in around more regular players, as opposed to three or, two or three of them on the floor at the same time. I'm not saying it's always the same, but one of the things that had impressed me about how they were playing is that didn't matter who was, like, the level of execution stayed consistent throughout. And that to me is something that impresses me about good teams. When injuries happen, the system is sort of strong enough and the collective, understanding is there. And so you can continue to be effective as a team. Tonight, they didn't do that, or, tonight, Monday night, they didn't do that as effectively. And that's why they lost to a pretty lousy team. It is kind of funny. Like, other than the Celtics games, they've lost this one. What is it? This one, Charlotte, Utah, and the Sixers. Like, those are the teams that have beaten them. So maybe they just need to keep playing really, really good teams. Next, though, want to get back into the Austin Reaves thing, and then we can have a talk about Alex Len, because, folks, we did kind of warn you. We'll get to that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Wayfair. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or your budget. And from cozy furniture to stylish decor to kitchen essentials to outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at prices that fit your budget. They got easy shopping and delivery. The site makes it simple to compare different styles, different whatever, and your order will arrive fast with free delivery. And it's more than just furniture. I had no idea Wayfair has everything from storage solutions to patio decor, and it makes it the ultimate go-to for all things home or casa or domov. Get your home, that's Slovenian for home. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Many of you, and we thank you, have signed up for you subscribe to the show on iTunes or Spotify, or you have subscribed to the Locked On Lakers channel, or all of those things. We certainly appreciate it. You can also get the newsletter. You go to lockedondaily.com, and then you click on Locked On Lakers, and the show plus some analysis from us and from around the NBA channel is delivered to you 5 days a week. Great way to keep up on not only what's going on with Locked On Lakers, but what's going on around the NBA. I'm going to get shocked, but just because Brooklyn's a pretty big team, I think we saw why Alex Len hasn't played that much. It's not very good.
He made one very good pass out of the short roll to someone for a corner three. I don't remember if it was Jordan Goodwin or Gabe Vincent. That was an excellent play. That was also Alex Len's highlight reel of the game. He played
one block, like one nice contested shot there at the rim.
Yeah,
one good block. I'll give him
played
that.
13 minutes, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, 3 fouls. I talked about this on Twitter at Cam Brothers. To be clear, I don't think if JJ had played Christian Koko instead of Alex Len, the Lakers necessarily win this game. But I do not understand from a pure process standpoint why JJ is playing Alex Len over Christian Koko at all. I do not understand it. Like when the starting lineup was announced, I tweeted out that it made sense for Len to be the starter if your goal was to just try to not interrupt or try to avoid disrupting the rotation as little as possible. Coaches often do that.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's missing, they sub in someone who never plays, so the rest of the rotation is as normal as possible. I did note, though, that it was not the move if your goal was to please Laker fans. I don't get it. I honestly don't. And this is so people understand, it's got nothing to do with Christian Koloko's game tally or anything. Like the Lakers do not have enough games left for him to hit 50.
Koloko's played 29 games. Tonight was 30. 30. I was about to say, when you dress and don't play, it still counts against your tally. The Lakers only have 19 games left. So if he dressed for all of them,
if he's active, right, you might as well play him if you're concerned about the game count, because it counts regardless.
I look at it, I think two things were going on. I think one is just, well, actually, I'll say three. I think one is what you were talking about, this desire to keep as much of the rotation intact as possible. I think
to do that.
I think there is an element of trying to just get the physically largest guy out there, because again, Brooklyn,
he's big.
That is, as I said when they signed him, that is his best skill set, is just being really, really big.
No, he's scary as hell. I mean, by the way,
I wouldn't want to fight him.
I would never say any of this stuff to his face, and I pray he never watches this show,
right?
Because he's a terrifying person.
So I think the size thing, trying to just counteract the largeness of the Brooklyn lineup. And then I think the third thing, there may have been an element, and I can't obviously confirm it, I wasn't in Brooklyn to ask, of like, if you are ever, similar to like how he gave Bronny a shot, like if you're ever going to get productive minutes from Alex Len, like this is the shot. Like, okay, he played a couple games, it was tough, we kind of threw him in there right when he first got here, it didn't look very good, then he kind of dropped out. Now we need another big. It's pretty clear. Let's give him a try. And like, this is this will be the game that shows whether or not. Okay. And I would have predicted this outcome. The thing that I think really bugs me about it isn't so much, I agree with you. It doesn't make, when you think you might be limited offensively based on who isn't there, the one thing that Koko can do that Len isn't going to provide you, and that Jemison isn't going to provide you, because he's a below the rim kind of guy, is a little bit of vertical spacing. Yeah. And as sort of buzzwordy as that has become in the NBA, Luka Doncic loves himself a lob threat. And I would have wanted to see a legitimate lob threat on the floor for 15 minutes and see what would have happened.
I'd say Koloko's been better in the minutes that he's played than Alex Len by like a mile.
Well, low bar to clear. But like I said,
I think he's still been better.
Yeah, I didn't quite get. I mean, it's rare in games like this where you can kind of pick on the rotation. Like, some people were upset Cam Reddish didn't play. I am not. I mean, you could have put him in there, but he hasn't played in a long time. I don't think he's the kind of guy who's necessarily going to help out on a night like tonight a ton. other than being a larger body, on the wing. Maybe you get a couple of those rebounds and stuff like that. But the Koko thing, I think, is a definitely more of one to say that's a mistake.
I just don't understand it. I mean, I flat, and the team is in. They're obviously on the road for a while, so there's no way for us. We don't travel with the team to ask. I'm just curious why, because I just don't understand it at all. I just don't get it.
I want to, before we're done, and Lakers,
not necessarily a massive deal.
No.
I just don't understand it.
The other thing that I thought was interesting, and just as much of a housekeeping thing, is the Lakers are going to practice. A lot of times when you're this beat up, you're coming off a couple bad losses, you don't have a ton of bodies to get even on the floor. Coaches will maximize the amount of rest. The Lakers are not going to do that. They are going to practice ahead of Thursday's game in Milwaukee. I don't know how vigorous that practice will be, but they are going to practice. Before we go, though, I want to circle back to Reaves, because as you pointed out, Andy, he was 3 of 14 against Brooklyn on Monday. Since coming back from the injury, 5 of 12, 41% against Boston is his high watermark. He has 2 games under 22% from the floor. And while in this game he put up decent peripheral numbers, how concerned are you about him? Because, coming back relatively quickly from a calf injury, and those can be tricky.
I don't know. I mean, he wasn't out long enough to make you worry about being that serious. I mean, he missed 2 games, I believe.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He came back fast enough. You're like,
right.
Doesn't seem like that big a deal.
It doesn't seem like that big of a deal. I don't know if he's still working himself up to like physical form, where we're in a situation where he is healthy enough to play, but not healthy enough to feel like himself. And therefore that's getting in the way. I don't know if we've talked before about him and Luka not having the same synergy that Luka and LeBron had, or that Austin and LeBron has. So if he is feeling out of rhythm in a lot of these minutes, and they're ratcheted up tonight where he plays with Luka, or if he is in a slump. I mean, Austin has had a few slumps this season. I mean, sure, the majority of this season has been good for Austin, and at times quite good, but he's been through a couple pretty pronounced slumps over the course of this season. So maybe this is just one of them. That it's on the heels, though, of an injury makes me wonder how much is still lingering and how long it's going to be before, if that's the case, it stops, because they really need Austin to look more like himself.
Yeah.
And these last 3 games, like Boston was the best of them, and that was like a C+ level game. Tonight and the Knicks were somewhere between a D and an F. I mean, he just was, if it were not for his ability to get to the line. And while I remember this, I want to have a discussion for Wednesday about Luka and fouls and how he's handling non-calls, because James Worthy and Robert Horry
not well,
but they had some interesting comments about it. And this is something that we all knew was part of the Luka experience, but the last few games we've seen him getting pretty demonstrative about it. So I wanted to have a conversation for Wednesday, but were it not for the ability to get some of those calls, and it took Austin 2.5 quarters before he got to the line, he would have struggled to crack like 6 points in this game.
Yeah, and he's got to be able to hit shots, just because just getting the line tends to come with too much dribbling, and sort of sucking up possessions with trying to get himself into those positions to draw the contact, and it can gum up the offense. So something to look at, something to think about, something to watch on Thursday and Friday. We will, of course, be back before then as the Lakers are practicing. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 33,000 subscribers to the channel. Make sure you check us out on iTunes, check us out on Spotify, check out the newsletter. See everyone tomorrow.